1, the Lord rebukes the returning remnant for their misplaced priorities. In this chapter, it's a reminder about what we are pursuing in life. And the answer is not found in what we think our goal is, but in what we are actually doing. For instance, we may claim that the Lord has first place in our life, but what are we really pursuing? Are we pursuing Him above everything else? Or have we gotten sidetracked by our own desires? That was the case for the Jews who had returned home after being in captivity in Babylon for some 70 years. They had the goal of rebuilding Jerusalem and rebuilding the temple, but they became discouraged when they were met by opposition from their enemies, the Samaritans, and they were derailed with a lack of focus. They became distracted with the construction of their own homes and kept postponing the work of the Lord of rebuilding His house. They were making excuses, just as they did in verse 2. They said the time is not yet come to rebuild the Lord's house. Oh, the people made the excuse sound right. They wouldn't speak against the idea of rebuilding God's temple, so they spoke against the timing to rebuild it. And in verses 3 and 4, the Lord exposed their wrong priorities through His prophet Haggai by asking them, is it time for you to live in your panel homes while my house lays in ruins? Because the remnant put themselves ahead of the Lord. Yes, they were comfortable. Yes, they were satisfied. So in verses 5 and 7, the Lord asked them, consider your ways. Give careful thought to the direction your lives are headed. Then the Lord tells them in verse 8 what they must do. He said, go up to the mountains and bring wood and build the temple, that I may take pleasure in it and be glorified. It was now time for God's people to start being concerned with pleasing Him instead of pleasing themselves. So the Lord challenged their efforts, as He described in verses 6 and 9. He said, you have planted much, but harvested little. You eat, but never have enough. You drink, but you never fill. You put on clothes, but are not warm. You earn wages, only to put them in a purse with holes in it. You expected much, but see, it turned out to be little. You bought it home, and I blew it away. Because the people mistakenly thought that they could put their own interests ahead of God's and still prosper. And He tells them this. He tells them why. He said, because of my house, which remains in ruin, which each of you are too busy with your own homes. The Lord let them know what the consequences was for their actions. And He continued to in verses 10 and 11. He said, I called a drought on your land. They thought it was an attack from Satan, and they prayed against it. They said it was Satan's plot. No, it was not Satan's plot. The Lord said the problem was you and your priorities. And when they neglected the Lord neglected to bless their three basic needs: the grain, the new wine, and the oil. So when we get to verse 12, we see the response of the people. The remnant obeyed God and feared His presence. This refers to more than basic respect. It was recognition that God is a judge who deals with us righteously. And in verse 13, it shows us God's response to His obedient people, saying, I'm with you. I am with you to encourage you. I am with you to strengthen you for this task. This is a reminder for us that whatever the Lord calls us to do, He also equips us to do it. And the chapter closes with the Lord stirring up His people to do the work that He called them to do. And it began with His leaders, Zerubbabel, who was the governor, and Joshua, who was the high priest. And it extended to all the remnant of people. And they all came and worked on the house of the Lord. The stirring up of the Spirit flourished into a stirring of work. This is a principle that the Lord taught in Haggai's day, and it reaches down to our lives today to keep Him first in our lives. Be blessed.